A very good morning to Prof. Agni and my fellow friends. So my name is Kai Xiang. I would like to represent Lab10 to present our research, which is factors affecting poor academic performance among Year 2 medical students of Faculty of Medicine, UKM. So our facilitator is Dr. Suji Kumar. This is basically the list of members of Lab10. So for our introduction, Year 2 medical students in UCAM use their CGPA as a yardstick to determine their academic performance. And we want to do this topic because we have the desire to know the underlying factors that influence the academic performance among the medical students. For the literature review, from the journal that we have reviewed, we have collected 8 factors that will influence the academic performance among medical students, which are ethnicity, gender, study habits, time spent for extracurricular activities and family activities, frequency of visit to doctors, and taking breakfast, as well as lecture-related factors. So we will further discuss the literature review in the analytical analysis. So for the problem framework, basically all of the independent variable will affect the academic performance with the dependent variable. For the general objective is to determine the important factors associated with the poor academic performance among Year 2 UK medical students. For the specific objectives is generally to study the relationship between all the factors and the academic performance of the students. For hypothesis, this is the list of hypotheses that we have made. For example, females present with poor academic performances as compared to males. For methodology, we use the cross-sectional study because we want to measure the relationship of variable in a defined population at one particular time only. For the study field, we carried out this research in the preclinical building of UCAM Medical Faculty because this is where the UCAM Year 2 medical students study at. For the sampling, we use the convenient sampling because we just distribute the questionnaire to our friends, which is very near. And for the questionnaire, it is self-administered and it is this is the source. And for the study measurement, we measure the CGPA because this is the depending variable in our research. So for the operational definition, academic performance, we grade the CGPA 2.99 and below as a poor academic performance because it is due to preference in our certificates. For the gender, male and female, ethnicity, Bhumi-Putra, Indian and Chinese, study habits, poor, average, and good. For the scoring, it is the sum of the numbers of each criteria that we included in the questionnaire under elements of study habits. Same goes to the time spent for extracurricular activities. We grade them into the low average, high average, and high. The time spent for family activity also the same, and the frequency of visit to doctors during the last semester, and frequency of taking breakfast per week. And for the lecture-related factors, is grades to poor, average, and good. And for data analysis, we use Microsoft Excel 2010 and SPSS version 21. For analytic statistics, we use descriptive statistics, t-test, chi-square test, independent samples Mann-Whitney U-test with a significance level of p less than 0.05. For the questionnaire, we include all the factors that will influence the academic performance. For the descriptive analysis, so from here we can know we consist of 67 67% of females and 33% of males in our respondents, and for ethnicity, 67% of Bumiputra, which is the majority group, and 21% of Chinese, and then the 12% of Indians. For academic performance, we can from what we have collected, 44.2% have the good academic performance, and 58.5% have poor academic performance. For analytical analysis, for the first gender, we use the chi-square test because it consists of two qualitative variables, and the p-value is 0.392, which is larger than 0.05, hence the null hypothesis is not rejected. So we can conclude that there is no significant association between gender and academic performance of students. So our finding is similar with the research done by Borzi from University of West Indies, because it describes that the influence of gender is too minor, as the intelligence are mainly affected by the environment and some inheriting it, but not due to the gender. Next factor is the ethnicity. So for this, we also use the chi-square test. The p-value is 0.000, which is less than 0.05, and hence the null hypothesis is rejected. We can conclude that there is significant association between ethnicity and academic performance of students, especially the 62.5% of Bumiputra shows poorer academic performance. From the findings done by researcher Yemen, they proved the significant association between the ethnicity and academic performance among students. But their different finding is that their evidence show the students from ethnic minority groups are more likely to have the poorer academic performance, which contradicts with our findings, which indicates that the students from ethnic majority group are more likely to perform poorly. And for the next factor is the study habits. Again, we use the chi-square test and we grade them into poor, average, and good. The p-value is 0.311, and which is larger than 0.05. Now, hypothesis is not rejected, and hence we can conclude that there is no significant association between the study habits and academic performance of students. This research shows the different findings if compared to the research done by Bin J. Because those researchers found that the students with high CGPAs was due to the constant study habits and no interruptions during studying. However, our findings are different from those researchers. Hence, we suspect that our respondents might wrongly or inappropriately scale themselves, because the respondents have their own perceptions towards the questionnaire, and this will be one of the limitations in our research. The next factor will be the time spent for extracurricular activity. We use the chi-square test, and the p-value is 0.360, and which is larger than 0.05. Now, hypothesis is not rejected, and hence we can conclude that there is no significant association between the time spent for extracurricular activities and academic performance of students. So, according to the research done by Gominda, medical students spend more than 7 hours on extracurricular activities will have poorer academic performance because they cannot cope well. But our finding is different from theirs, because our hypothesis is that our students still can cope well and still diligent enough and can manage our time well. For the next factor is the time spent for family activity. we use the chi-square test, and the p-value is 0.717, which is larger than 0.05. Null hypothesis is not rejected, and hence there is no significant association between the time span for family activity and academic performance. According to Ali, the spending time with family spreads a positive vibe and do relax the minds of the students. However, there is still no significant or differential research done to show the relationship between the time spent for family activities and the effect of their academic performance. The next factor is the frequency of visit to doctor. For this factor, we use the Mann-Whitney test, but not the independent t-test, because from the graph plotted, both the skewness and kurtosis value is beyond the range of ±1 and ±3. So we need to use a non-parametric test. And from the study, the p-value is 0.549, which is larger than 0.05. And the null hypothesis is not rejected, and hence there is no significant association between the frequency of study and frequency of visit to doctor and academic performance. These findings are also different from the research done by Jean-Louis G, because they conclude that the students who frequently visit to doctor due to their poor health condition will tend to have the poorer academic performance. But our findings are different. So from our hypothesis, we can conclude that the students are managed to get the right medication in a short period of time and can recover soon from their illness and then keep on study. So for the next factor is the breakfast frequency. So we use the independent t-test in this factor, because the graph is normally distributed and the kurtosis value and the skewness value is within the range. So from the p-value 0.034 is less than 0.05, hence the null hypothesis is rejected, means that there is significant association between frequency of taking breakfast and academic performance of students. This finding is parallel to the research done by Croquet, who found that eating breakfast appears to predict high GPA because the eating breakfast will boost the energy of the students to perform well throughout the day. For the last factor, lecture-related factor, we use the chi-square test, and for the p-value 0.965, which is larger than 0.05, and hence the null hypothesis is not rejected, and there is no significant association between the lecture-related factors and academic performance of students. The findings differ with the Irfan Mustaq, which states that the guidance from the teachers will affect the students' performance because of the poor delivery lecture timing of lecture. However, our findings are different again. So this is due to the fact that there is SLP package in UKM, so the students need to study it themselves, but not with the lecturer, and this is less related to the lecture-related factors. So for the study limitation, the first one is the insufficient specificity in questionnaire. For example, the breakfast frequency. So we need to give the specific question, but not the subjective question, to give a clearer picture to the respondents. And second one is the compliance of the students. Some students will avoid to answer the questionnaire, for example, the CGPA, so we have to avoid the questionnaire. And the third one is the subjective answers. in the questionnaire, because different students have different perceptions or different definitions towards some words. So there may be cause the research to be inaccurate and no standardization. So for the conclusion, we can conclude that the factors that associate with poor academic performances of UK medical students are race and breakfast frequency, whereas those the factors which do not associate with the poor academic performance are gender, study habits, time spent for extracurricular activities, and family activity, frequency of visit to doctor, and lecture-related factors. For the suggestion for future research, we need to provide more specific questionnaire with definitions given to collect more precise data, and interview associated with questionnaire could be done instead of self-administered methods. Okay, so this is the reference we use